folks, welcome back to the show. Hope you're doing well. It's been a while. A couple weeks ago, out of the blue, all of a sudden, my wife and I are moving. So it's been a lot. I'm looking forward to getting on the other side of the big move, but the days of recording the show in the dark, hot, sweaty basement studio next to the boiler are coming to an end. So if you've always loved the studio down here, enjoy the last couple episodes of all time. And if you've always hated it down here, well, a change is coming soon. The boiler's out here. This is the door I always close. Not that it matters. But I've poured my butt, sweat, and tears down in this hole. It's going to be nice to record the show in a room that has a window and some natural light. All right, so today I want to talk about the embarrassing state of the Epstein saga and the United States government. And it's sad and it's bleak, but one kind of funny part about the whole thing is watching the United States government and the politicians have to toe the line between we're cool, we're transparent, we want to release the names and the story as much as you do. Trust me, I'm cool. But also having to protect the donor class that gives them all the money and the powerful people that are still in the government that have blackmail and the whole thing. So there's this, they could just release the story in the whole thing, but instead we have to have a meeting, and then we're going to write a bill, and then we will vote on the bill. It probably won't make it through. We'll have to write another one. It's going to be a long process, people, and hopefully we'll be able to get there. I don't know. And it's like, what are you even doing? Just release the whole thing. Tell us the whole story, and let's be done with it, and we can actually have the government work on things that will help the average family. Sometimes I fantasize about becoming just an evil politician. Just stop trying to fight the fight. Just join up. Just like my fellow Americans. I know that for young people, home ownership has become a pipe dream, and it's a slap in the face. We'll give you a half-century mortgage. I know you can't afford groceries or afford having a family, but look on the bright side. Soon you'll be able to buy a sex robot. Thank you, and God bless America. Imagine how bleak it's going to be when people start financing their sex robots. It's like, yeah, my car payment's $200 a month, but my sex robot payment is $600 a month. I'm feeling a little bit strapped for cash, to be honest with you. My sex robot payment's killing me. And then inevitably someone's going to default on their sex robot loan payment, and a couple burly repo guys are going to show up with a flatbed truck to repossess it, and some guy's going to be sobbing on the sidewalk, please don't take her. I love her. I love her. The sex robot's just going to be on the back of the truck with a blank, dead look on its face. Great times ahead, folks. But anyway, we're going to talk about the Epstein saga a little bit, and then I want to talk quickly about some Bryan Kohberger updates. He's not having a great time in prison. He's had some complaints. And then I want to talk a little bit about a wild case that went down in the last couple weeks. Jesse Butler, a couple years ago, he was a 17-year-old baseball star. And then two of his ex-girlfriends came out with horrifying assault allegations. And for 2 years, it's been marching towards trial. He was facing 80 years. And then out of nowhere, they offered him this plea deal. They didn't tell the victims' families. And that's actually why the Epstein saga in 2019 came back to see the light of day. It's because you got to tell the victims' families. But now they're offering him, instead of 80 years in prison, 1 year of counseling. Yeah. So, and then I got a funny story that's not related to any of this that I'll tell at the end. So let's just get into it. So before we talk about what's happened with the Epstein case this week with the vote and everything, I want to talk about some Ghislaine updates since the last time I talked about this a couple months ago. So the last time I talked about this, it had been thrust in the news again. Everybody was demanding answers on both sides of the aisle. That's one thing I do like about this saga, is it's bringing people from both sides of the aisle that have always hated each other, and now they're working together. Kind of a beautiful thing, you know? But after everybody demanded answers a couple months ago, the Department of Justice went and met with Ghislaine privately, and people were saying that after the meeting, Ghislaine went back into the prison with holding 2 giant boxes that she didn't have when she went to the meeting. So there was speculation, what the hell's in those boxes? But right after that meeting, she was moved to a prison in Texas that apparently she loves being there. And then a whistleblower in the past couple weeks has said that she's getting meals delivered to her. Delicious non-prison meals are being delivered right to her cell for her enjoyment. She has access to puppies. I don't know if they gave her a puppy or if she's allowed to play with them. But this brings up the whole 2 parts of this story. So it was in the House of Representatives yesterday. They voted on, are we going to release the files? It passed the House. Now it'll go to the Senate. It's a lot harder to pass through the Senate. I'm sure it's going to take forever and take a lot of time that the politicians could be trying to figure out other problems, but here we are, just more. Should we release the names of all of the pedos or should we not? We're going to need another year. Don't worry, folks. We'll do it. We'll figure it out. We need a vote. We need another bill. We need some more time. But anyway, yesterday, the House voted and passed on the discharge position that will force the release of thousands of sealed documents from the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking probe. It was written by Robert Garcia from California. He's a Democrat, but it was supported by Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and people from both sides of the aisle. The night before, Trump announced that he wants Republicans to vote yes on it, and so that's why it passed very easily. And now it'll move to the Senate. But the problem is, I don't really ride the waves of these. The list is coming out because credible unofficial lists have been coming out for years and not much happens. It's a giant list of names, and most people, your average person, is only going to recognize the top 10 or something. And it's the names that we've all heard, and then sometimes, like I think Larry Summers, in the last week or so, because of his involvement in the recent stuff that's come out, he had to step away from his public life. And Prince Andrew, or formerly Prince Andrew, I think it's just Andrew now, but he lost his credibility and his title. And so things do happen, but it doesn't seem like there's any real deal investigations or charges coming. And so the list of names come out. Hey, oh my gosh, a list. And then a few days turns into a week, and then the news cycle changes, and then something happens, and then we're back spending all of this time. Should we release more of the files? And I hope they do, but the 2 parts of this story is the men that assaulted these young girls and the women now, they deserve justice, and they do, and it seems like maybe they're going to get some headway on that. But the whole other part of the story is explain why Alex Acosta, back when Epstein was arrested in Florida years ago, how all of a sudden the whole thing disappeared in a puff of smoke, and Epstein was allowed, his passport after he was arrested wasn't taken, and he was allowed to go to Israel and hang out there until they offered him the plea deal, and he accepted, okay, that's good enough for me, and then came back. Why was that allowed to happen? Why isn't Alex Acosta subpoenaed? Why is Ghislaine have puppies? Who is bringing her the meals? Who was blackmailed? Who commissioned the blackmail? And what was the blackmail for? And I don't think they're ready to tell that story. It doesn't matter how many bills they vote on in the House. It doesn't matter how many lists come out. That's the part of the story that really everybody, whether they know it or not. What about Epstein's death? That's the part that we want to know, the real. And a lot of people were there that whole time. Like Alan Dershowitz is not only on the list and in the files, but he was his lawyer when they were going to arrest Epstein in Florida. Someone tipped off Epstein, and he brought all of his computers and everything into Dershowitz's office. So couldn't Dershowitz just tell the story? Any of them? But anyway, this most recent discharge petition is now going to the Senate. So I am rooting for it, but like I said, I'm a little bit cynical and don't really ride the waves because it doesn't seem like the whole story, they don't want to tell it. It's just we just want to be cool. We're transparent, we're cool, we're for the people. All right, what's the story? My donor, I don't want to talk about it. But that's where we're at with the Epstein saga. All right, so let's talk about Kohberger. So this past week, they tried to make him pay more restitution to one of the victims. His lawyers were fighting it, which I guess is understandable. They're saying he's not going to be able to pay it. He doesn't have the ability to pay or to work or anything, so how is he going to pay it? And so that made the news, but a little bit more interesting to me when they brought him into prison. So this has been, I don't know, a month or two or something at this point. He had a formal complaint, a couple of them, saying that he was being verbally heckled. They were yelling at him through the vent in his cell as he walked. He said he couldn't sleep because they're screaming at him through the vent in his cell, and it's just been really hard. And he requested officially to be moved to a different part of the prison. And they got back to him and said, listen, we're not saying this because we want to give you a hard time. This is the best part. We put you in the best part of the prison to make it the easiest on you and to make the transition as smooth as possible. And so you're just going to have to get used to it. Sorry, it's going to be a little rough for a bit. They're going to scream at you through the vent. You'll figure it out, hopefully. And then another couple official complaints that he had was that food was missing from his tray, and he wanted that to be fixed, and he wanted the food that he missed out on to be given to him. And I don't know if there was official response to those, but an overall feeling that I'm getting from the whole with the Bryan Kohberger thing is I think he really enjoyed being in the spotlight. I think the people, the psycho killers that he looked up to, that inspired him, I think that he really enjoyed the whole process of the trial and it going back and forth and his lawyers fighting for him and the whole thing, all of the attention, whether he knew it at the time or not. I think he loved it. I think that was the most infamous and electric and the most attention that he will ever get in his life. And he was this dark, scary psycho killer, just like the ones he looked up to. And now that it's over and everything is about to slow way down for him and he's going to start to feel like everybody has moved on and he's rotting away and no one cares anymore and maybe no one actually really cared that much about him, I think he's going to be one of those people. Maybe it takes 5 years, maybe it takes 10 years, but I think he's going to want to do an interview where he tells his whole side tells the whole story just to re-up that attention, bring the news back onto him. I think he's going to feel like he's wasting away, rotting away, and really crave and end up doing some sort of tell-all interview. We'll see if I'm right. That's the feeling that I get, is that he's going to want to do something like that. And kind of the funny thing about that is there were, the whole like Bryan Kohberger is innocent creators here on YouTube, like the crime circus dude, and then there was another one that I didn't know until after I did that episode about it, like something reality, where they were saying, he's innocent, and then once he pled guilty and admitted to it, then they doubled down, sometimes even tripled down, and said the only reason that he's admitting to it is because they were going to give him the death penalty, and he wants to take that off the table. Well, even that isn't a smart thought, because if you look it up, in Idaho, they've only executed, I think it was 3. I looked this up a while ago. I think it was 3 people in the last 20, 30 years or something. And one of them requested a speedy execution, but the other 2 were on death row for like 20 or 30 years before they did it. So no one in their right mind, and lawyers wouldn't let their client take away the appeal. Part of the deal was you never get to appeal this. So this is set in stone. So you're not going to accept, if you really truly were innocent, you're not going to accept life in prison and not even be able to appeal it. You're going to take a shot at trial knowing, all right, if he's found guilty and he's put on death row, we're going to have 2 decades to fight it. We get the full, most thorough appeal process possible to go through. And so no matter how you shake it, that's definitely the best option. To have no appeal or nothing, all right, I guess I'll just do life in prison for something I didn't do. But to admit that they were wrong, that wouldn't have been acceptable. And so they've doubled and tripled down. And so it's going to be kind of funny if I'm right and in 5-10 years or whatever, he does a complete tell-all interview. How do you quadruple down after that? He's still lying. He's making it up. But anyway, it's going to be kind of funny. But anyway, Bryan Kohberger is being yelled at through the vent in his cell, and he can't sleep. He's having a hard time sleeping. All right, so let's talk about Jesse Butler, the 17-year-old baseball star. 2 girlfriends come out, ex-girlfriends, and say that it reminds me of Russell Williams type stuff, where like they'd be in his car and they'd say, I don't want to like have sex with you right now, and he'd say things like, you're not leaving till I'm finished, and they'd be screaming and he wouldn't let them out, and it would go on for a long time. And one of the allegations was forced oral sodomy. I mean, really horrible stuff, where he would hold them against their will and do unspeakable things to them. He's this 17-year-old, and like I said earlier, 10 charges come through. He's facing 80 years, and then the story is, right before trial, they came up with this plea deal on the steps of the courthouse where it says he's a good chance for rehabilitation, and we're going to do this youthful offender program instead. They didn't it was a total blindside, the victims and the victim's family, which that was the reason that the Epstein case got to be brought back into the light of day in 2019, because a judge decided that a conspiracy did happen with Alex Acosta way back when, and it didn't tell the families of the insane plea deal that Epstein got, and you have to tell the families, and so it was brought back. And so here we are, and 17 years old, it's barely youth, and also this isn't a tiny little mistake that it happened. This was, he held these girls captive and said some really bleak, dark stuff to them, evil stuff, and all of a sudden he's got this plea deal. He has to do counseling until he's 19. Well, he's already 18, and then it's just gonna, and the judge that approved it, I don't think you should make fun of people for how they look, because we all come in different shapes and sizes, but this judge's shape and size happens to be a giant fat blob, and she's got a droopy eye. And I feel truly anger for the judge, because I got a really bad feeling about this one. I hope I'm wrong, but the feeling I get is he's just a bad egg. Either you do stuff like this or you don't, and it seems like he does. And he's got a long life ahead of him after this quick year goes past, and he's going to be dating again, and he's this big dude, and his behavior that I don't think you can fix in a year of counseling is going to rear its ugly head again. And all it's going to take is for a woman to start screaming and him say, shut up, and try to stop her from screaming. And he's going to overpower her and kill her. That's the feeling that I get. And it just seems like it's so easy to pick whether when someone young does something, whether, all right, should we jam them up with a little prison time, or should we not? If it was a mistake that can be handled in a different way where they don't, and this just doesn't feel, I got a bad feeling. And imagine if you're the one later that gets assaulted, or you're the family of the person that he kills, and then it's like, why is my life ruined? And you look it up and just a fatso judge with a droopy eye made the call. All right. So that is that. I have genuine anger for how that one was handled. All right, so I got a story. This is unrelated, hopefully kind of funny story, but the reason I thought about telling this story is one of my wife's oldest friends is dating a new guy that we hadn't met yet, and it's going really well. They think they're going to get married, and so we had dinner with them this past weekend. But it reminded me of this story years ago, like 3-4 years ago. My wife's friend, she's a teacher just like my wife, but she's a singer-songwriter, like folksy, Americana, and every year or two she'll have a new batch of songs, and she's got a little fan base, so she invites her fans out and her friends and family, and she rents out a venue, and she puts a solid band together, and she plays the new batch of songs. So we go to that, we saw the new batch of songs. Afterwards, we went up to her and we're like, that was great, good job. And she goes, I want to introduce you to my new boyfriend. This isn't the guy that we had dinner with this weekend. And so she introduces us to this guy, and he looked like if he was an actor, he would be cast to play Jesus, like good-looking dude with the beard and the long hair. And so we met him, and he was like, hey, so this weekend I'm dancing at Thompson Square Park, and I would love it if you guys came and watched. And we were like, all right, cool. Yeah, maybe we'll make it out. Thanks for inviting us. Nice to meet you. And the first thought that I had when he said that was a month or two before that, a buddy of mine had invited me to this dance festival at Thompson Square Park where it didn't matter if you were a professional dance troupe or a total beginner dance troupe. You could enter this festival, and then you got to go up on the big stage and for one song do your dance. And a bunch of people would show up to watch. And why it was so fun to watch is obviously the professional dance troupes that were incredibly good got a big applause, but the hobby dance troupes, where it's a bunch of 60-year-old women that meet on Sundays and they dance for fitness, this is their big day. This is the only time they're going to have an actual audience of people watching them. And so the non-professional, where they're not even actually good dancers, end up getting a lot more applause. And then because they're getting cheered on by everybody in the crowd, they get that energy and they give it their all. And it really is kind of this dance festival in Thompson Square Park. You should go to it if you can, but it's really fun. The crowd just gets hammered and cheers hilariously loud for the amateur and the not so good dancers, and then they're giving it their all, like, this is cool. And it was just a good time. So when he said that, I will be dancing this weekend at Thompson Square Park, I'd love for you guys to come and watch, in my head I'm thinking, it's something like that. Maybe Thompson Square Park is the dance park. And so my wife and I decide throughout the week, you know what? It's your friend's new boyfriend. It sounds like he's got a dance troupe. Let's just go and make a day out of it, and we'll support him. Walter was a puppy at that point. We couldn't leave him home for too long alone. So we're like, all right, we'll bring Walter and we'll make some sandwiches and bring a blanket and go watch the dance thing. And so the weekend comes, I make sandwiches, we get the blanket, we take 2 trains, takes 45 minutes to get there. We get to the park, we set down the blanket, and the boyfriend comes up. He's like, hey, thanks for coming. And we're like, yeah, cool. And there was a band playing in the parks. And so I kept thinking there was going to be, like, they were going to end a song and then someone was going to come out and say, all right, thanks for coming out. I thought maybe there was some sort of something to say, all right, we're kicking off the official dance, but nothing happened. And we're sitting on the blanket going, what's going on? And then the boyfriend gets up from, we like put our blanket next to theirs. He gets up and he goes out in front of the band that's playing and he starts just like doing a hippie dance. And I grew up in Colorado. I know a hippie dance when I see one. And this wasn't even an impressive or a cool hippie dance. And he's doing this hippie dance and there's these 2 girls, not my wife's friend, 2 girls kind of around him and they're doing a hippie dance. And it becomes clear there is no official dance thing. He's not in a dance troupe. He just invited us to watch him hippie dance to the free band in the park. And as we realized that, my wife and I are just looking at each other, blinking at each other in disbelief. And he's out there just doing his unimpressive dancing. And then the song would end and he'll come back and sit on the blanket and look at us like, how cool is that? And then it comes out that the 2 weirdo girls out there dancing with him are his ex-girlfriends, which my wife's friend, that's now his new girlfriend, didn't know they were coming. So she kind of had this look on her face of, I can't believe he invited my friends out to just watch him dance to the free band in the park. And I can't believe his ex-girlfriends are there. And then another guy showed up to the group and was like, hey, it was apparent that he knew everybody and he had a dog. And that dog kind of viciously lunged at Walter, which it happened. He didn't get to him or anything, which happens with dogs. So I was just thinking, he'll just sit a distance away from us and we'll keep the dogs apart. Well, he smacked the dog's face almost as hard as I've ever seen someone hit a dog. I was like, whoa, it's too much. And then he gave me a really dirty look because I told him, like, whoa, buddy, like, what are you doing? And I'd never met him or anything. And so think of the vibes now. We had just gotten there. We're sitting on the blanket. We realized he had just invited us out to watch him dance, which is insane. And then the guy smacks the dog so hard that I can't get past that. I can't talk to him, or I don't want to be there anymore. I don't even feel like eating my sandwich that I made. And then the boyfriend's coming back between songs looking at us like, huh? Good, right? And I'm trying to decide in my head, should I just smile and nod along for another half hour? And then, because I knew I was never going to talk to him again. I just never was going to hang out with this guy ever again. Or should I say in a halfway friendly, ball-busting way, what made you think we would want to watch you dance to the free band in the park? It took 45 minutes and 2 trains to get here. What makes you think your hippie dance is good enough to invite people? You should be ashamed of yourself. This is insane. But I decided to just stamp a big stupid smile on my face for a half hour, and then we were like, oh yeah, we gotta go. Shar-Pays don't handle the heat very well. We gotta get Walter home. Thanks for inviting us. Really, really good, man. But anyway, I thought about that story to tell you guys this weekend. But anywho, I'm gonna cut it off there. I love you all. See you soon. Pretty soon it's going to be a whole new studio and everything, but bear with me while we do the big move, and then I'll be back to a normal schedule with the show. All right. Why? Stiving why? Shamita. End of transmission.